Welcome to Think Fast, where I sound exhausted because I have spent 5 hours in Kidzania, surrounded by brands making kids believe they're adults. Super interesting though. It's like a social experiment I saw happening. I'm like, wow, this is how the world is. How has
Oh
your
my
day been,
God.
Suchita?
Dude, I would be like downing whiskey if I was stuck with children for
I just
five
downed a
hours.
shot of espresso while you were saying that, but fair
That
enough.
too in Kidzania of all places. No, but my day's been interesting as usual. On Saturdays, I end up catching up with a lot of work, and I also went to the H&M store, the H&M home decor store. More home decor,
Hmm.
guys. More home decor. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but Marks and Spencer's launched home, as is H&M, and I think I'm hoping Zara also brings their sort of thingamajig to the mix. But the home continues to grow, and pulo phalo.
In the spirit of digressing a little bit, have you been to a Zara home store? I always found it to be very whenever I
No, I
visited a
haven't.
Zara home store abroad. No,
No, I have
it's
never
basically
visited.
but it is bro too much bling. It is like Jakas
Zara
Jajak.
home store. There is no Zara
Jajak
home
is
store in
the word.
India.
And I've been
Like,
to a couple of them internationally.
acha, oh
And every time
really?
I walk in, I'm
If
like,
you,
this is like Jajak, like shiny
how
as
interesting.
F.
Because if you look
Yes.
at Zara Home's YouTube, it's very like muted Spanish, like terracotta
I
and like
only saw like
wood and
shiny shit.
grays. Oh God, no,
Unless
me
I went
too.
to some
Beauty lies
random,
in the eye of the beholder. Beauty lies in the eye
maybe I
of the
went to Zara
beholder.
home instead of Zara home.
Huh, sounds like you. But in any case, before we shoot ourselves because of Varun's poor jokes, thanks to spending 5 hours with little toddlers, let us continue. A couple of highlights
Yes.
from this week, man. And D2C furniture startup Wooden Street has secured 30 million in investment to add new categories. So, as I predicted, home is only growing, and it's actually a
Hmm.
pretty good brand. I've seen it recommended on our platform a bunch of times, but they have obviously struck gold over here. Apparently, Oyo, Droom, and Snapdeal are all pushing their IPOs out to next year, which is generally a good idea given the bloodbath that's happened. Especially over the past couple of weeks on tech stocks. But how could we not start this conversation with the biggest news of this week, which is da 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 da.
Shit poster one. Or did
Oh
he
my
win?
God, dude.
Or has he
We will
really lost
find
it?
out. Dude, Elon Musk has, ladies and gents, in case you're very confused, Elon Musk has finally bought Twitter only for 2 rupees. That's not accurate, for $44 billion with a B. And obviously, he, secured this funding not only by, not only through his own sort of like, Tesla stock thingamajig, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
but I think he also got Morgan Stanley involved, if I'm not mistaken. But man has
Yeah.
secured
Yeah.
the money and man has bought Twitter, and Twitter is
But he
already
bought it
singing
against
little
his
shit
Tesla
for me.
stock. He got it
Correct.
against his Tesla stock, which went down
Oh,
right after this
shit.
news came out. Because it's obviously like he's stretched, right? The more he gets stretched, is he really going to focus as hard over there? Is the question which
Yeah.
stockholders must
Yeah.
have had. Now, there's a thread of conversation I've been reading online saying that if the stock starts going down a little too much, he might have to pull the plug on this because you have put your stock as collateral to get this money. If that
Hmm.
stock is going down, the people who've given you that money might be a little jittery. So
Yeah.
there is still a lot of people who feel that it won't actually happen, because he still has to go through a process to get things done. And plus, he's been on some random stuff with adding
Oh man,
cocaine back to
cocaine
Coca-Cola.
and coke. Jesus.
Yes.
No, but man has chored, man. Man has chored, and he's flexing as one does when you're sitting on that much of money in stock or otherwise. By the way, it's been a good quarter for Pinterest, which is one of my favorite quote unquote social media companies. They've seen a
Hmm.
strong growth on ad spending. Of course, we're going to be talking about the ONDC story with
Hmm.
Nandan Nilekani, who has struck
Hmm.
back with yet another interesting turnaround, after Aadhaar and what UPI. How could we forget
UPI.
UPI?
UPI, yeah.
Also, by the
I have
way,
a
fun
question for you.
fact.
Since you
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah, jump in.
Pinterest,
Hmm.
Pinterest has also been scaling a lot in India, right? I mean, how have you seen that? I
Yeah.
mean, I know. generally?
Yeah, so Pinterest, I think we discussed this in the first or the second episode. They had
Mm.
Virat Kohli of all people as an ambassador,
Yeah,
which was very
yeah,
random and
correct.
stupid. No, but we are on Pinterest, like LBB is on Pinterest, and we've actually been growing at a fairly good clip month on month in terms of views. So I'm assuming they're doing whatever they need to do to, really pump audiences up. And they're also going to have a focus on small to mid-sized businesses in India, because that's also how that's also how they monetize in the US and their other markets. So Pinterest, I am obsessed with the platform. I am so glad that they've kept it simple and not digressed. But what are we talking about today, man? What's
We're talking
on the
about
menu?
we're getting into the Zilingo drama, which doesn't seem to end, and more things. It's like, you every month we have one startup drama, stuff coming out of the woodworks,
Bharat
and
Pe
this
ki
time it's
choti behen. Yes.
Peggy Choti Pan Zilingo.
Seriously.
Kidhar go, Zilingo. Anyway, never mind. I will move quickly ahead from that. Really bad. Even I'm like, I can't believe I made that, whatever that
Dude,
was. It wasn't a joke, but you're talking about
seriously.
what's happening with Zilingo. Then I'm going to get into the whole what is Nandan Nilekani really building up towards. Um, you've been interested in the reselling market for a bit, but
Yes,
I think what you're
queen.
going to bring in is that going to look at that market and understand where is it really coming from, and where it
Hmm.
supposedly was coming from might not be where it is actually coming from. That sentence did not make any sense. I'm just blaming Kidzania for this statement. I'm going to get into what's happened with the Amazon Prime Video slate that just got announced. You're going to tap into the future of shopping, and we're going to close up with my favorite platform to say what has happened to the last 2 hours, Instagram, and some
Yes,
updates
queen.
and stuff which they're testing. So that's what's ahead. While I think maybe I do need a bit of a stiff drink before the end of this recording. But before I do that, we will take a break and be right back with Think Fast.
Hello, hello, hello! It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, author Aparna Piramal Raje shares with Ashton 7 mental health therapies. The Simplified Gang discussed the Tata Group's recently released Super App. On A Sip of Finance, Priyanka explains how inflation affects our households. On Tede Mede Raste's 100th episode, Keshav takes us to Amritsar's beautiful Golden Temple. Keshav, congrats for the 100 episodes. Wow, that's a whole 100 episodes. Check them all out. And on Smarter with Sid, Siddharth sheds light on why Netflix lost over 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter of 2022. Do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do tell a friend. It really helps us out a lot. Also, don't forget to rate us on any platforms you're listening on, and you can also check us out on YouTube. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We would really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app.
Welcome back to Think Fast, where I'm still feeling the drag of Kidzania. Also, just like point to note, Kidzania is awesome. I was super interested to see how they've structured this, and yeah, I'm super intrigued. I want to understand the business model. I actually got some numbers which I might randomly drop into this episode.
Yeah, we should talk about. Well, it'll be a good change from you plugging in your own products. But let me kick us
Yes,
off, man, while you
yes,
drag
yes,
on
yes,
and knock yourself
yes.
over
I'm
with
going
the
to be a bit
king
of a
of
drag
hacking
today. I'm just
shots.
letting everyone know.
Can't wait. Today is going to be a delightful Saturday. But ladies and gents, we're kicking off with the first story of today, which is the Zilingo drama. For those of you who've missed it, Inc. 42 released an article, I think, yesterday, which
Mm,
basically, I mean, and I also want to caveat by saying that I think that article was fairly poorly written, because it just seemed like a bunch of, you know, random points of gossip which the journalist at Ink 42 would have gotten and then stitched it together. Like it just seemed very poorly researched, so I just want to
yeah.
caveat
Very few
with that.
sources, right?
One, very few sources. Second, a lot of hearsay. Third, if you're doing takedown pieces, you need to back it up with facts,
Mm,
right? And not to say that there weren't facts, but it would have been good to have some verification of the same. For example, one crazy thing that came up in the story, which I found laughable, was that apparently Ankiti Bose hired CAA of all agencies. I mean, guys,
What?
CAA represents like the biggest Hollywood stars. So she apparently hired them for their branding and even her branding in the US, which I found ridiculous. And then there was some like random facts about how apparently the government has filed a case against Zilingo because they were supposed to deliver N95 masks along with the PPE kits, and there was some like issue around the delivery, and apparently Ankiti Bose has been buying tickets for her family through, it's
Mm.
very like murky. But my challenge with it was a little gossipy because it's a little difficult to get into the weeds of did this actually happen or did it not. But let me kick off with the real point of this story or this conversation, right? What is it with founders wanting to build their brand when their company is operationally struggling? What is going on here?
So this is entire narrative online, right? And like for instance, I've been asked this question. I'm sure
Hmm.
you at some point
As
have
have
been
I,
asked as
yeah.
well, saying, "Does it important? Is it important for you to build a personal brand as a founder?" Is a
Hmm.
question all founders get asked, and oftentimes everybody tells you should build a personal brand. But at some point, there's a line. There's a line where your personal brand ends and your ego begins.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of them kind of cross that line and go there, and once you kind of go towards that, there's no holding back, right? Then you're making it all about you. It has to be that you are,
Yeah.
it's be all and end all of everything. Also excludes the team more than anything else. Any organization is a team, and you
Hmm.
start making it about yourself. You're taking focus away from what you're building, what the team is, and that's where things have gone sideways a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
about what can I put on LinkedIn, what can I put on Twitter, but end of the day, you're building a business. Shouldn't forget that part.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, for example, like even I've been asked about this, and I just want to sort of caveat by saying that we guys do think fast for funsies. It has literally
Yes,
not been for like anything else, and it's and if you guys hear about why think fast even started, was just for at least for me,
this
it's
is a chat we
always
would have
been.
on a weekend.
Exactly. One is that, and second is it's also helped me structure my learning, right? Because I
Mm,
actually now take out time to learn about new things. But keeping us aside, I think the thing that I found like absolutely absurd in all of this is, see, I totally get you wanting to build yourself up once you've figured out your business fundamentals for, irrespective of what scale those fundamentals may be at. But I think the thing that I found really surprising over here is, dude, she was out there publicly, out in the open up until literally like 2 3 odd months ago when this story started breaking. um
mm,
and having stories like this break, when you've got the likes of all of your B2C businesses shutting down. So as per this article, Zilingo tried launching their B2C business in the US and their B2C business in Australia. Both apparently didn't really go anywhere at all, and both had to be clambered down. Obviously fashion was really poorly affected thanks to the pandemic,
mm.
and because of that I can understand their business being very heavily impacted. But in the midst of all of this, how you I don't know why you would reach out to, like, there's a big difference in between hiring a PR agency and getting in touch with CAA, man. Like, it's just absurd.
But I think more than anything else, if you read all the articles on this, including this Inc. 42, right, it basically shows that on one end, you're trying to grow at a certain pace and you're doing acquisitions and you're going into newer markets and you're launching newer business streams. And the other end, you're also kind of distracted by this piece. And I
Yeah.
feel the mixture of those two, plus obviously at the core of it, seems to be the tension between both co-founders. Seems to be
Yeah.
at the core of the larger issue, and even like what she was trying to figure a way to buy back Sequoia's stake in the company as well is what
Now
I
she is. Yeah.
now she is,
Now
right?
she is. Yeah. Given everyone
But
seems to have sort of like walked away.
But if you look at it, it's not really as different from what's happened with Bharat Pay in the sense that it is again something that you have a public display of basically it's a public quarrel of sorts
Hmm.
happening. But end of
Hmm.
the day, affects the company, affects employees, also
Yeah,
affects
yeah,
the
they're
way
already
you look
down
at
to 500
corporate
from
governance.
900
Yeah.
from an employee perspective. I think the one thing that I want to, sort of like call out to over here is, and yesterday when I was reading this, I was so conflicted because she's actually quite young, if I'm not mistaken. I think
Mm,
she's like 30, 31. And
mm,
coming out of something like this is not going to be very, very, very easy, especially if
yeah.
your claim to fame is that you used to work at Sequoia and then you have like so like business failures is one thing, but scenarios like this is a whole other sort of like beast unto itself. So I don't know, like you just feel really bad for the person to have put themselves in a place where like all of this is just sort of coming out. And again, like I said, maybe half of this article is fiction and the other is fact, but I don't know, man, what a waste.
I
What a
think the
total
core of
waste.
it also goes down to one thing, right? I think there's on one end hyper growth focus,
Hmm.
showcasing yourself a certain way helps you in fundraising. A lot of
Yeah.
the personal branding conversation comes with saying if investors know who you are because your personal brand stands out, the chance of you raising also become a little better is what you
Which
kind
is
of hear
true.
out there.
Yeah, which is totally true. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think
So
profitability and fundraising can go together?
I don't know, man. I think like this happens every 2 years, right? Where suddenly in the startup ecosystem there's this whole call to profitability and call for unit economics and call for governance and all that other rubbish. I mean, they're all very good things. The reason why I'm calling them rubbish is because it's very cool when cycles are like on the down low, but the second the market narrative switches to fundraising, and basically markets become more bullish, you see the narrative totally change. And I think
Hmm.
I don't know, man. I think if there's one thing that I've learned in 7 years of everything from like the highest of highs to like the lowest of lows, I think if there's one thing that I've learned and also learned from a lot of very successful founders, is the best founders are the ones who play the long game.
Hmm.
And you look at it across the board, right? You look at Nika. I mean, they've been building their business for 10 years. You look at First Cry, they've been at it for a while. You look at Lenskart, Policy Bazaar, all of these guys have been working on their business for anywhere in between 10 to 12 odd years. So I think somewhere the expectation that things are going to be built overnight, maybe that needs to change, and that needs to change on all sides. And just one like last thing from me over here, and then we can go on to the next story, is I had sent you this, but Anand Lunia, so for our listeners, Anand Lunia, who is a partner at India Quotient, he co-runs India Quotient. He wrote this excellent article in Money Control over how, like, ownership of disasters like this, whether it's whatever is happening at Zilingo or whatever happened at Bharat Pay, the ownership lies with everyone involved. It lies with the investors, it lies with the founders, and honestly, to some extent, it also somewhere lies with professionals wanting to work at these crazy hyper growth sort of startups,
Yeah.
taking a 2 to 3x hike in their salary, without and expecting the sun, moon, earth, etc. I think all of it just comes together to like create not the healthiest way to operate. And I think all of us have made mistakes like this, right? Because somewhere like in the momentum of it all, you end up losing it a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of healthy ways of operating,
Guys, how
Amazon
spaced
Prime,
out is Varun? He's, I wish all of you listening in need to like go to our
watch it on
YouTube and
video.
see Varun's face. Varun is not interested in
I'm
co-hosting
listening
this
to everything you're
episode today.
saying.
He's just like, "Mujhe neend aa rahi
I'm just
hai."
going to play.
Oh my
I also ate
god!
half a massive pile of cotton candy. So, and then had a double espresso shot. So I feel that this combination plus this conversation
Oh my
is
god!
amazing.
आप भंड हो
But
गए हो.
moving on to
Lovely.
other drama parts,
Yes.
Amazon Prime India announced their Slate, which is a fabulous slate. I mean, literally, there were enough memes going around about how all other platforms must be feeling after that slate got announced. And
Hmm.
and apart from the fact that there were titles which are super interesting, there were shows. I mean, there is literally now an OTT version of Rohit Shetty's Cop Universe, which I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of in general. Anything Rohit Shetty, I'm a fan of in general. But I feel the larger story here is the fact that they balanced so many things right with this entire catalog, right? You don't just have one kind of Bollywood. You have enough, let's say, Telugu, Tamil, etc. Enough regional there. They actually have shows which are across multiple languages, different cast members. They've also been able to really smartly figure a way to build shows which have so many now recurring seasons, right? I mean, I'm just reading about like everything from Mirzapur to Four More Shots, Made in Heaven, Breathe,
Yeah.
Panchayat, Patalok, and Komikistan coming back for after many successive seasons. So they seem to be doing something right, and they obviously announced a few other things. But first reactions, what do you think of just how they've operated compared to everybody else?
Yeah, so I think obviously there aren't too many like numbers that are public apart
Mm,
from Amazon Prime Video apparently has the second largest subscription in the country after Disney plus Hotstar. But how every single show performs is unknown. Obviously, the fact that they are getting these shows signed up for the second, third, fourth season goes to show that the performance would have been good. I think the one thing that I really like about APV is just how like diverse the content is, and also how they're
mm,
able to take formats that work in one region and then recreate it in multiple different ways. So for
yeah.
example, they have Modern Love, which is this super popular show, US based, inspired by a series of essays from the New York Times. They are
Mm.
bringing a Modern Love Mumbai edition, Chennai edition, and then I saw another regional
Hyderabad as well, I
edition.
think.
Exactly. And I think that's what's like. There's something about their content. I'm not the biggest viewer of APV, but and I say that as a good thing because
Mm.
I think somewhere by not always appealing to audiences like myself, I think they're doing literally the right thing that's needed in a country like ours.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is they kind of looking at this in multiple ways, right? They have a bunch of co-productions they're kind of coming out with, and they launched a Prime Video store, which is a smart thing because in many ways, you can just transact and buy a movie. It's almost like renting a movie to watch or buying a movie to watch
Yeah,
in that sense. So when something releases in theater, there is a window still between when it comes in the theater to when it will come online. They're making that window shorter by saying if you still want to watch it, you can watch it just need to transact like how you'd buy a ticket,
yeah,
kind of like what Book My Show has been trying to do in recent times as well. So all in all, I think that's interesting. And plus, if you look at the names and pretty much every single large production house is now working with them in that sense. Um,
correct. I saw
but you can't
YRF
put them
and
in a
Karan Johar
box.
was there, and like a bunch of
Yeah.
other Excel was there. A bunch of folks were there.
There's also one thing which I really noticed is the fact that they've also smartly mixed together. If you look at the cast they're using, right, they're not just going for mainstream Bollywood. You'll suddenly have you seeing a lot of creators who may be popular on YouTube and on Instagram, etc. Suddenly playing specific roles in some of the shows. Um, and they also, I think, like how Netflix had they launched their mobile plan as well sometime back, and now you
Yeah,
have like so many big names kind of coming out. What
yeah.
could be interesting to do though, if you, and like you said, there's no data available, is you can look at the data and understand um, at some level what do you think the viewership would be like versus
Hmm.
what, let's say, um, I wouldn't say Netflix, but really what Hotstar and Disney gets, right? Because
Yeah,
Disney Plus has also had a lot of premieres of movies, but it still feels like an app that is got a lot happening there. And by the way, Amazon also got cricket on. There's sport
yeah,
as well now,
correct.
which is now
Yeah.
coming in.
So
So
I had a couple of quick questions for you related to
mm,
exactly this, right? One is like, what do you think is helping Amazon dominate? Because let's be honest, it isn't necessarily the most comprehensive catalog. Is it just that they, through their e-com engines, understand consumers much better than Netflix does? Like, you know what I mean? Do you think because they're so entrenched in so many different sort of parts through their multiple different products, they're just able to understand Indians much better?
I just think the acquisition strategy has been very smart by not seeming like they're sticking to one kind of content.
Hmm.
Like if you look at any other platform, you know what you kind of expect when you go to a certain streaming platform. You can go to an Amazon Prime Video and find all kinds, which I feel that it's the acquisition strategy. It's the what are you okaying that really helps, and making sure you invest into shows over the long term. Like for me, Breathe, for instance, was something which is I don't think the season one was that big a thing, but they've persisted with it and it's grown with an audience over there.
Yeah.
Or just like not making it a Bollywood platform, but really
Centric
going
platform.
beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I think that's really worked well for them as well.
Yeah. And if you had to compare them to Disney plus Hotstar, right? Given that you obviously
Hmm.
understand this space more than I do,
Yeah.
what do you think is the difference there? Like, what do you think is setting APV apart from Disney Hotstar?
So Disney Hotstar, the problem I foresee is that they're on one end really reliant on cricket and IPL.
Hmm.
So that's their
Hmm.
big draw for a lot of their viewership kind of coming in. The navigation on the app, Disney Hotstar really, I mean, it's just gone from bad to confusing, right? It's tough to find something on search. And at some point, the variety feels very limited. You really need to
Yeah.
dig in deep to find something that is not a Bollywood property or like a standard movie. On an
Yeah.
Amazon, you're still finding stuff which is might be a little different in that sense. And now they're getting into the whole docu space and doing a bunch of those things as well. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I want to see the AP Dhillon docu series for sure.
Oh my
He's like,
God, Brown Monday.
yeah.
Wow.
I
Can't
mean that.
wait.
Yes.
Can't
So,
wait.
yes, I've been forced to listen to AP Dhillon because I was like, what is this song that is on every single chart? Is where I started, and then I got hooked. So yes,
Yeah.
um,
He's a gangster and he's transcended all generations.
it's amazing.
Of
It
all their releases, by the way, which one are you most interested about? Like,
Cop
which one's caught
Universe,
your eye?
guys, Cop
Oh my
Universe.
God.
Rohit Shetty's
I
Cop
cannot.
Universe,
I
always.
can do this. I can do this. But let's switch gears. I wanna, shock and awe you with a new story and wake you up. Come on, Varun, wake up. Which is basically so. Guys, the next story that I have been wanting to talk about for the past couple of weeks is this whole space of like the resale economy.
Hmm.
You could call it, selling of secondhand goods. You could call it, platforms like StockX, which is just basically, collectibles, like selling of collectibles. But there's so much happening in this space, which, really makes it an interesting space to watch out for. And it's happening across the board, right? So there have been a lot of like luxury resale platforms. There have also been platforms like Poshmark and Depop,
Hmm.
both of which are again in the second hand, quote unquote, products and apparel and good space. And then of course, you've got someone like StockX, which is basically double tapping on all things collectibles. There's another really cool company called Whatnot, which is YC funded. They also are in the space of collectibles, right? So you can buy those, what are those things called, Tazos, or those Pokemon cards, and like, random shit like that. You can buy it,
Yeah.
on Whatnot. I mean, they literally sell, what the name suggests, which is a little bit of anything and everything. Um, so first, quick question for you, and while we like, dissect this segment and also inform our users about a couple of numbers, let's talk about fundamentals. Where do you think this interest in resale is coming from? Is it coming from people wanting to be sustainable, or is it, something else?
So I first came across this when there's a platform called Kootloot, which still exists.
Hmm.
When Kootloot got founded, I knew the founder because he was, if I remember, at Unilever before he quit and started it off. And I remember they were only fashion, and he introduced me to the term pre-loved clothing. And I'm like, why is it called pre-loved? He says that nobody wanted to call something secondhand, which is what we would all
Yeah.
call it, right? Or
Yeah.
used in that sense. But they had to evolve from just fashion to go towards electronics and some
Hmm.
of those to kind of scale as well. And over time, they've become this marketplace for all of those things. But I don't think sustainability is really the focus as much as you might want to put that out there from a marketing perspective. People go towards this because you're saying that do you need to buy an entire outfit for one wedding which you'll wear for one day, or would you just
Hmm.
rent it?
Hmm.
Or if you're going for I think the rent the runway in the States has happened because of
Yeah.
that, right? You literally want it for that one specific day, and things like that. So if you look at it from that context, I think that's where it comes from. Like, do you need to spend the money to buy it outright versus would you rent it? And we also have, I think a lot of people have enough clothes which you want to just get rid of, and you're like, if I can
Yeah.
make some money out of it, why wouldn't I?
Why not? Yeah.
Those would be the key areas I would see it, and especially from the standard space. It
Hmm.
gets a lot more interesting once you go towards, let's say, sneakers or some of the other pieces,
Yeah.
where I think that's where it's a whole different ball game. But in a traditional sense, I think it's more about offloading what you have in the closet, and saying, why can't I make money out of it? And the other end is saying, why do I need to invest into clothes which I will only wear maybe once or twice?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And, obviously in India, we haven't seen any of these platforms really take off,
Hmm.
as much as one would expect they would. So, for example, like even last week, we guys spoke about reselling or secondhand or pre-love, right? And the two
Hmm.
spaces where you see that happening in India is, in electronics and in, cars. But in the US, of course, you're even seeing an industry like apparel, command a significant amount of not just money from VCs, etc., etc., but even, valuation on public markets. So, just a couple of data points for you listeners. Resale grew 25 times faster than retail, and what is now a 28 billion second-hand apparel market will more than double to an astonishing 64 billion second-hand market, second-hand apparel, and this is only for apparel by 2024. And all this is US data, just for, just to sort of contextualize this for everyone. So in the US, it's obviously grown significantly, and what's interesting about this space is, like you said, there are like these. three buckets, right? One is occasion. So, renting or renting as an occasion. And I just want to sort of add one small thing over here, which is I think renting and reselling are two very different markets. I would
Yeah.
never bet on renting, but I would actually bet a lot on reselling. And
Yeah.
within reselling, the sort of categories become, one is this luxury goods space. And I think luxury goods is where things get very interesting, because the reason to buy into second-hand luxury goods is, one is either it's a collectible, right? Like it's a Chanel bag that came out in the 60s, nothing is available anymore. So again, you want to signal that, one, you have the cash money, second, you're like really with the trends. Resale becomes an interesting sort of segment to pop into. The second is just making money, man. Like the amount of money that is made on platforms like StockX by people who buy easy
Yeah.
drops and then resell it, on StockX at like crazy high markups. It's literally like flipping real estate, but at like
Yeah.
a faster cadence, and with quicker, faster sort of like customer penetration as well. So again, what's really interesting about this space is it really is a money which is a draw. It's either the money or it's a signaling, but a combination of the both of those things makes it a space to sort of reckon with. But question for you, what do you think is the difference in between the use case of renting and reselling? So when does one rent, and where do you see the economics of resale come in?
Rent comes, like you said, it's a one-off, right? Where you like,
Hmm.
weirdly, the renting I've seen is when people have to wear a costume. Like somebody's saying, okay, this is kids have Halloween parties these days. Adults have to wear Halloweens as well. That has seeped across every part of this nation of ours. We have Halloween costumes for kids.
Only
And
for
so where
rich
do you
people
rent it
who
from?
live in rich societies of Lokhandwala, ladies and gents. हमारी औकात नहीं
Yes.
है, but वरुण ऐसी चीजें करता
But
है.
you can rent it. You don't have to buy the costumes. You can rent the costume. Is what a lot of us are doing. But on the other end of the spectrum, I feel where it makes sense. I feel is weddings. I think the renting part
Hmm.
is, for me, weddings. Just like you need to get a suit for that one time, you need to wear it for an interviews. Stuff like that is
Yeah,
where I've seen the rent part being spoken of a lot more. Reselling is more for affordability, right? You want to afford something which you want to buy something which you can't afford, and
yeah,
this is an option you have, and it's gone through the process of a platform really running through it and seeing if it's legit or not.
yeah.
And then you can just buy it from there. Why wouldn't you? Is the way I look at it. But you mentioned sneakers, right? And I think the collectibles end of, like, obviously look at watches and what Houdinki's been able to do globally
Correct.
for the watch market. In India as well, you have Main Street Marketplace. Full disclosure, I'm an early investor in that company. Has been doing that with sneakers as well, where we are seeing people really spending a certain amount of money in sneakers and luxury goods of that category, just buying and selling and almost treating it like an investment. There's a
Yeah.
portfolio system you can actually build for yourself by buying sneakers and selling them. And you honestly, if you do it right, you can actually make a lot of money very quickly. It's just that it's not a traditional it's not a traditional investment instrument, but
Hmm.
it is a great way to kind of invest and grow in that sense. So yeah, I feel that part is what I've been looking at, interestingly, saying, okay, it's almost creating different kinds of ways for you to invest and grow. I've got my eye on watches right now. I'm just looking at saying, is that an interesting space as well? Because it's
Yeah.
slowly catching up in India as well. It's obviously been a global phenomena. Maybe my Casio watch might one day be worth a lot.
Maybe it will. And just one small thing here before we get into our break. What was that small thing which I've forgotten? Yeah. One very interesting use case for resale is also differentiated supply. So, for example, Etsy, which is
Mm.
obviously a massive sort of player of unique handicraft products in the US, they actually bought Depop for exactly this reason. Because Depop, and guys, you can check out the app, DEPOP. Their USP was actually that you'd find products on Depop which were difficult to find otherwise, right? Similar to eBay.
Mm.
So I don't know if you've ever, like, the Indian eBay experience sucks, but like eBay in the US, you literally find like the
It's massive.
coolest, very, like a garage sale kind of product. So I think another use case is also unique supply, but more on that maybe another time we discuss resale.
Yes. And before we get into the next story, we're going to take another break, while I can figure out a way to put some espresso into like what is it? What is that thing called? A saline line into my system.
Man
And
is
we'll be right
slurring
back to Think
again.
Fast.
Man
I'm
is slurring
slurring.
again.
And we'll be back. I have not had alcohol, guys. This is not alcohol speaking. This is just being really tired. So we'll be right back with Think Fast. Welcome back to Think Fast, where I am barely surviving, but we are moving fast and ahead in this episode. What are we talking about next? Oh, actually, that's something which I kind of put up here, but both of us have actually jammed about this for a bit now, ever since the story broke out. Nandan Nilekani, obviously from being one of the co-founders of Infosys, helped build out Aadhaar as well as UPI, is now working on a new project with the government, which could be super interesting considering how much e-com's been able to penetrate across the market. The idea is very simple. It's to say, sounds simple, might be super tough to do, but it sounds simple. It's basically almost like an online platform where any merchant can kind of plug in and just kind of buy and sell goods. Almost like saying, can you as a Kirana store compete with the larger ecosystem of, let's say, everything from Flipkart to Amazon, etc. So first, draft thoughts from you, Suchita.
More people should introduce Nandan Nilekani as a guy who gave Vijay Shekhar Sharma acidity, because that's exactly what happened after UPI was launched with Paytm. But keeping that aside, I don't know, man. I see. Obviously, they haven't like unveiled any product just yet, and from a thesis perspective, it's fairly sound.
Hmm.
Though I will say one thing, as someone who's worked with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses through the course of building up LBB, their biggest issue is not always the semantics of it. It isn't generating demand. So I think the larger questions that I have over here is, I get there'll be standardization of delivery experiences, standardization of rates, and just sort of like the pipeline becomes easier for businesses to plug and play into and plug and play with. But I don't think the challenge for SMEs necessarily always is the mechanics of it. I actually think their biggest struggle is opening demand funnels, which is why Flipkart and Amazon take the kind of commissions that they do. It's because whether you like it or not, they are demand generators, so that 20, 30, 40% they're taking from you is the cost of acquiring consumers. So early thoughts, I think, is it interesting? For sure. Given that it's coming from the place of e-commerce shouldn't be monopolized, and e-commerce should actually be democratized. That's what the intent is, which is a very noble intent. But the challenge over here is going to be, that's cool, bro, but how you guys going to help get these
Hmm.
small to mid-sized businesses customers?
I've had an interesting. I mean, this is more a question in my head, which is the fact that is this an option you're building out for merchants, or is this the default? Like
Yeah.
in many ways, you see UPI has now become the default of how we transact.
Hmm.
It's not credit card. It's not an option to credit card. It's just the default. Credit card almost is like almost like a second layer of ways to kind of go. So will this almost force, let's say, an Amazon or a Flipkart to say, okay, we need to plug into this system too, rather than saying this is an alternative? Because that's been the big question. Because
Yeah.
we never do options, we do defaults.
Correct. Yeah, I think I couldn't echo that more, because I don't know if you saw, but they released some statement saying something along the lines of how they've already raised 150 crores from Dunzo, blah blah bullshit bullshit. To which I
Hmm.
was literally going to comment saying, "Did you raise this money, or was this a participation fee? Because it sounds
Hmm.
like the latter." And also, unfortunately, this government is a little notorious for like arm twisting people to getting things done, as we saw happen with the Aadhaar, even though we all had
Hmm.
PAN cards. But sorry, you were adding something.
No, no. What I was coming in to say is that also I feel what's happening on the other end is that because you mentioned Dunzo, is that if you look at Dunzo and everybody else, they're kind of gotten into this whole system of moving
Hmm.
towards Dunzo daily and quick commerce, and suddenly they were supposed to kind of bring in this way for Kirana stores to kind of be able to give stuff. And obviously, you've spoken about this in the past episodes about how that model doesn't really work from a
Yeah.
scalability and a profitability standpoint. Could this be the fact that you're almost turning to Kirana stores and small merchants saying, don't go for the private players. This is state mandated. It's not for profit. So this will make more sense for you to do than to go after someone who's kind of building a solution for you in the private sector.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know, man, but like, yeah, I am like very conflicted about what to say over here, because I'm also trying very, very, very hard to be as politically correct as is possible. But I think the way I'll phrase it is, at the end of the day, consumers will always choose the more efficient option. So, for
I
example,
agree.
like that UPI is able to have the impact that it has is because it's a pretty freaking efficient option, right?
Yeah,
Aadhaar, obviously, none of us had an option but to, sign up for it. But for all practical purposes, the implementation of Aadhaar, even vis-a-vis tracking of vaccinations, this, that, and the other it's been interesting to see how that's, played out. I think the larger question that ONDC will have to address as it grows and scales, is will consumers pick this option? Because
mm,
markets go basis what consumers want. And I know right now they're
yeah,
building it for the business, like they're building it as like a B2B tool. But at the end of the day, for the business to gain something from it, consumers need to buy into the proposition as well. So again, mixed thoughts about this. That said, I think Nandan Nilekani is a gangster. I
I
think,
agree.
everything that he's built has just been phenomenal, and that he's also brought so much technology into just how we operate is a pretty kick-ass. So I'm excited to see where this goes, as long as we don't have to pay a participation fee.
Speaking of think of where it kind of goes, I'm blah, 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 blah.
Slurring
Slurping
again.
again. I'm slurring again, guys. I'm slurring again. Speaking of where things are really going, you had to kind of dig into the future of shopping because I
Yes,
feel like I want to go
queen.
shopping. There's an Under Armour store that opened near my house. I want to go buy Dwayne Johnson merchandise.
Oh
So
my God,
yes,
guys. Basically, Varun has nothing else to say about ONDC. So now he's like nudging and prodding me to get along with my story. So, bhaiyo behno, let's talk about the future of shopping. So, guys, where this actually topic came from was this excellent article that I just found by this like awesome blog that I follow called The Sociology of Business. It's written by this lady called
I have a question. How
Anna,
many
and yeah.
blogs and how many newsletters do you subscribe to?
I think closer
Trick
like
question.
15-ish.
Oh, that's not bad. I assumed it'd be like some 30, 40 types,
No, no,
considering.
no. I'm very like I also clean stuff out, so I'm very good at like Mary condoing my
Oh, I
inbox.
don't do that.
Yeah.
I have a
No,
feeling
but
that I might have more. Anyway,
yes.
my digression aside, continue, please.
Yes. So basically, there's this excellent article by Anna Angelic, who basically spoke about how, for those of you who missed it, but there's this quick checkout platform called Fast, which actually shut down I think last week after raising some $200 million, and now their competitor Bolt, again in the
Mm,
quick checkout space, which blew up like about 2 3 odd years ago. They apparently are getting sued by one of their biggest clients for $150 million. Bolt is also Sequoia funded. Their founders are a
mm,
little like wacko jacko on Twitter, but whatever. And really, where this article came from was, everyone sort of said that the future of commerce is the future of shopping online is going to
mm,
be faster, cheaper, more efficient. But what's interesting is anyone who's tried to make the anyone who said the future of shopping is faster, cheaper, more efficient, those businesses haven't necessarily gone anywhere. So the question that she begs from folks who are like reading the article obviously is, where can the future of shopping go? So let me ask you this, man, Varun. Everyone thought Instagram would be the Amazon killer, TikTok would be the Amazon killer. uh, Amazon isn't just surviving, it's thriving. But
yeah.
where do you see the future of shopping going? And is it just going to be Amazon versus, a bunch of niche players? What do you think is happening here?
Interestingly, right before this recording, I read the story that Amazon has shown its first loss in like since 2012 in their quarterly
Hmm?
earnings, which is like I'm like, oh, something's happening there. But
ऐसा भी
I
होता
agree.
है.
ऐसे भी होता है मतलब चलता है कभी कभी लॉस भी बनाना पड़ता है प्रॉफिट बनाने के लिए इसलिए
Yeah,
उसको
yeah.
बाजीगर कहते हैं.
Oh my God. I can't do this.
That joke
I
for this
can't
segment is
do
done.
this. Oh
But
my
anyway,
God.
I think Amazon's always also built it in a smarter, more robust way. That and maybe are we trying to find solutions in spaces we don't necessarily need that solution? That's
Hmm.
what my thought has been. Do you need to merge these spaces so much? Do you need to go so minute? If you look at some of these pieces that have really fallen through, um, maybe they weren't solutions we needed after all.
Yeah.
That's how I've always seen it. And look at some business models. I'm like, it sounds very interesting, but do we need this? Is
Hmm.
often my question, and that's what I thought when I looked at that the bold story. Where I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense what they were building out, at least to me. Did it make sense to
Yeah.
you?
I mean, irrespective of whether it made sense or not, I just it's like you said, it's one of those where you're making a part of the value chain efficient, which is already efficient enough, right? So,
Mm.
what are the other parts of the value chain that where efficiency is actually needed? And I think there's so many people, and even if you look at the Indian context, I remember in 2019 there was this whole excitement around video commerce because tier 2 tier 3 women don't shop on the internet, and if we do live commerce, if we show them products live, then they will shop. And there were two companies that were launched, SimSim and Bulbul. Both of them had
Mm.
to sort of pivot. Bulbul, I think, is in talks to get acquired by MyGlam apparently, and SimSim was acquired by YouTube. And of course, from whatever I know, both of them have sort of changed their business model to not be like Naptol, but get into more the tooling, etc space. There are two three other companies that have struck some gold. One has been this company called Dealshare, another one W Mall, and obviously Misho is your single sort of flag bearer of all things social commerce through their reseller play. But if you look at India, like Amazon and Flipkart, both of them continue to sort of eat the lion's share of the e-com pie, and no matter what other folks have tried, no one's really been able to make a dent. And I think, when you sort of flip the switch and you look at a country like China, for instance, there are a lot of really cool products that have come up over there. There's an app called Pindodo, PDD, which Dealshare is kind of modeled off of. And they do a lot of community buying, right? So if Varun and Suchita are buying, like Sabzi as a community, then the price of it goes down. It's actually this really fun, like stock market-ish,
Mm.
type experience. Then China also has Ikee, which is their version of their YouTube, where that lipstick king guy who we spoke about, who sold
Yeah.
$12.5 billion or some absurd number of some absurd GMV of
Million,
lipstick.
million, not billion.
Yeah, million. They all of them end up using platforms like this. So I think the thing that's interesting over here is, in the US, in fact, of all the countries that you would expect would have an app that would be a shopping that would really create that experience of serendipity that happens in a mall, that that experience of like stumbling upon something that you didn't know existed. None of them have really been able to recreate that. So if I had to sort of like throw coffee on your face and wake you up a little bit,
Yes,
and
yes, I'm
ask
awake.
you, what's a category that you think the experience of shopping can really be recreated in, what would you say?
I feel the one part which hasn't happened as well, which I've always been interested in, is the fact that how do you kind of connect physical retail to digital? That
Hmm.
seamlessness, while there have been experiments, hasn't happened. I think that's the solution. A lot of these are very minute. Like I was reading about Bolt, and they literally were a crypto payment startup which pivoted to being a checkout starter. Like, so they're a feature, they're not necessarily a product.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously platforms like Shopify, etc., kind of came and kind of ate a bunch of that pie. And they
Hmm.
just tried to scale growth, but instead of trying to really scale up and build features, very specific ones in the e-commerce side of things, I feel the larger play might actually be saying, how can I kind of bring these worlds together?
Yeah.
I feel, because if you look at it, e-commerce is still a very small part of retail. If you're trying to solve
Single
for
percentage.
shopping, you're forgetting that there is an entire physical part, which is the biggest chunk of them all. You're
Yeah.
not making that seamless, and once you make that seamless, I mean, that's where I would say the focus should be.
Yeah, yeah. Last story, and then you can go to sleep.
Yes, my last story for today is my favorite app, which I spend a lot of time on when I make reels, when I scroll through, and I don't know why I have an accent because everyone on Instagram doesn't talk in an accent. But anyway, Instagram. So Adam Mosseri is one of the most likable CEOs around, I feel, because if you follow him on Instagram, he genuinely seems like a nice guy who does these AMAs every week, talks about the problems the platform has very openly, shares videos of his kids, and the fact that his setup at home is literally like setup which I have, which like put a bunch of books under a laptop to make sure that the camera is high enough for you to be able to show your face. But more than that, he talks about the features they're building in very often. He announced a few things I think are interesting. It also kind of adds up to how this can really help not just creators but professionals on the platform. You can no longer, till now when you had to kind of tag someone, you would tag a person and that would be it. You go to their profile and figure out what they would do. Now you can tag someone, actually attribute what what they do. So if you have a photo and you have a photographer tagged, it actually says photographer under that because that's what their bio says and stuff like that. So attribution, showing people credit, is a great way to do this. It's in some ways, and saw a lot of photographers, especially on Twitter, etc., kind of talking about this feature, saying while it used to be a platform for photography at a certain point of time, this is a way to almost give something to the photographers again, as Instagram, by saying, you can attribute whatever's out there for them. They also announced a way for you to tag products. So if you have put up an image and I have products in that, I can tag them
Yeah.
specifically. And these are, I think, a good way to kind of build that ecosystem of saying, okay, one is that helping the other grow. And they've been building a lot of that with your collaborations, as in terms of reels and videos going up. And there's one which I feel is interesting. It's been rumored, it's not official yet, is that they've working on a new editing feature which lets you almost use templates to put up creative. So you don't have to kind of create it on a separate app, put it right now, which is what a lot of us do. So you end up
Yeah.
finding an editing app and you edit over there and put it up on Instagram. They're building a lot of that into the app as well. So it seemed to be interesting moves kind of going ahead. But first thoughts, considering are you a reeler yet, Suchita? Have you made you a
I
reeler?
am not a reeler. I am not
We
a
need to make you a
reeler.
reeler.
Oh my God, please let's not.
Reel it, feel
No,
it.
but I think, geez, Louise, I'm just going to pretend you didn't say that. But I know that was
No,
a
I think that's
hashtag
actually a
with which
line,
they
by the way. I
launched.
didn't come up with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, no,
I
no.
didn't
I
come
know,
up
I
with
know,
that.
I know. You didn't come out. Yeah, someone else who makes sort of dad jokes came up with that. No, but what I was saying was, I think the interesting thing that Instagram seems to be doing now is going back to their focus on creators. Like, remember, we guys had
Hmm.
discussed this when we were talking about the last Lego features that Instagram had announced, and all of them
Yeah.
seem to be very like, what direction are you going in? Are you a creator platform? Are you an ads platform? Are you a commerce platform? What are you? I think they're sticking to their narrative, man. It sounds like they have realized that TikTok's able to do what they are doing, because TikTok has a very, very, very strong focus on creators, which Instagram has sucked at, and YouTube is probably like as bad, if
Hmm.
not worse. I mean, apart from the YouTube Fest and all, you really don't see that much happening for like YouTube creators at large. That YouTube is still thriving is fairly interesting, but generally sounds like it's pretty much on track and on narrative to how they've been thinking about their creator stack feature so far.
The interesting part about YouTube, because you mentioned it, right, is that if you actually talk to YouTubers, while they will crib about it, they're still the only platform that pays out money regularly to creators.
Yeah, I
Nobody
agree.
else has cracked that and built a solid system behind that. I think that's why, even though creators will crib, everybody wants to have a YouTube channel because over
Yeah,
time that's sustainable. That content is something people kind of come back to. The problem with oftentimes I feel with, they say, reels or anything on Twitter or LinkedIn, is that
it's
you create it
ephemeral.
for now. How much
Yeah,
long-term archive value does it have?
yeah.
YouTube has the same kind of archive value like this episode on a podcast has, right? Is that people might find it years later and say, "Oh my God, look at these two geniuses! What they talk about? Why are we
Should
spending
have
our
been
time listening to
signed by
this?"
CAA. Just kidding.
Yeah, there's another feature which I haven't tried, but when I was reading this, I look, it could be interesting to kind of look at. Is something which they call the Watch Together feature, where you can watch
Hmm.
reels with friends on a video call. Feels very interestingly like one thing which I love on YouTube is people watching stuff and reacting to it. Like I
Yeah.
would love to do a reaction video piece on a bunch of reels which I watch. I have a favorite. Actually, that should be my recommendation, although I don't know how
What is
people
your
will find it.
favorite?
There is this lovely, I don't know how to share it because you have to see it, so I will not talk about it. You only have to
Oh,
find a anxiety dog reel on Instagram is the only thing I will say. It's so much fun.
great.
I'm going to
Thank you
watch
for
that
that
after
treasure
this.
hunt. But which of these features are you most excited about as a Instagram creator?
I think product tags is great.
Hmm.
Product tags is a great way for you to kind of build that in, to how seamlessly you can put a product into your creative and help monetization. I feel that's the smart way to do it, rather than right now it's still a little more complicated about how you have to put a product in there. You still have to do a hashtag ad. Sometimes you have to get
Yeah.
into paid partnership. But here it's
Yeah.
simpler, or you could just be someone who likes a brand. You can attribute it to that brand. I
Hmm.
feel that's actually the most exciting one. But
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how they bring the editing feature in. I feel the big problem Instagram has is their editing features haven't improved as quickly as they should, and oftentimes end up being a little buggy because they've had to kind of build these up very quickly. So those are the two I'm looking forward to. But we need to get you to make some reels, maybe some dance
Oh
reels
my
for you.
God, please, not happening anytime soon. And with that, it's a wrap. Are we done? Are we done?
We're done. But we have our recommendations to give. I have many recommendations in my head.
Of course you
One is
do,
called
including
sleep.
sleep.
But before we do that, we'll take a break. We're back with Think. Welcome back to Think Fast, where my recommendation is, guys, once you go to Kidzania, do not block a podcast recording for yourself. Right after that, 5 minutes after you come back from 5 hours of kids running around, to a genius place called Kidzania, where brands have paid lots of money to make activities for kids. I am like, whoever came up with this idea is a pure genius. But what is your recommendation?
What is my recommendation? Oh, yes. H&M, oh, for those of you who, like me, love home decor, I'm all for shopping local. And on most days, I will plug in LBB and say shop on us. But guys, for those of you who are in Delhi and can, drag your asses to Ambience Mall in Vasant Kunj, go check out India Madhavi's collection for H&M. H&M. India Madhavi's is incredible designer, and for those of you who are a sucker for all things interior, she's literally like my go-to person for like the best interior decor and design ever. And she has a reasonably priced collection with H&M. Yeah, so that's going to be my recommendation for today. As a very excited shopper who went at 11 a.m. the second the store doors opened and got herself something from the collection.
My recommendation is, the next time you have chili chicken, make sure you eat it with curd rice. The combination is amazing.
Oh my God. What kind of dumb recommendation is that,
Have you
Varun?
not had curd rice and chili chicken? It is the best munchy food ever. No, but I think I
Mm,
will just let it be with that. That is my recommendation.
yeah.
That and sleep.
Oh my God. Yes, you need sleep, my friend. Jao, so jao.
Okay, guys, toodles. I will be back with more energy next time, and hopefully not
Yes,
Kidzania
queen.
driven. But till then, stay safe and eat some curd rice. Toodles.